Welcome to the Breakout Growth Podcast, where Sean Ellis and Ethan Garr interview leaders from the world's fastest growing companies to get to the heart of what's really driving their growth. And now, here are your hosts, Sean Ellis and Ethan Garr.
All right, in this week's episode of the Breakout Growth Podcast, Ethan Garr and I chat with Ben Yeager, Vice President of EMEA at Moloco. So Moloco provides machine learning-based advertising solutions that help advertisers reach prospects outside of the walled gardens of Google, Meta, also known as Facebook, and Amazon, and obviously Instagram and others in the Meta mix there. So Ben explains that those companies are really great at driving performance. So anyone who's used any of those media properties on the advertising side, you have a lot of controls. They're almost automated in the sense you can put a target cost per acquisition, and they will automate their way into finding opportunities to drive that cost per acquisition for you. But getting that same type of control and performance outside of those big media properties has been really tough, and that's what these guys are addressing. So they're going beyond the walls of the big three to bring performance marketing opportunities that are on a similar level to what we see in the big three. So Ethan, what did you find most interesting about this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge world beyond the big three. So I think this is really relevant and exciting for our audience. But, you know, Sean, we're at such an interesting time in the world of tech because of AI. Half the news is telling us how AI is going to make our lives and work better. The other half is telling us how it's going to take our jobs and probably murder us in the middle of the night. But here's a company that's built massive success, 5x growth in the last 2 years with machine learning at its core. So this is really, it became a conversation about outcomes and what machine learning and AI can actually do to help businesses achieve their goals today.
Yeah, I just finished up a couple of speaking tours, and it's literally AI. Almost every question I get, all the conversations around AI, and the hype is understandable. I think it is going to be super transformative to growth, to marketing, to business in general.
Yeah.
But ultimately it is about driving results. And I was excited with this conversation because Ben really brought the conversation back down to earth. He works in performance marketing and using machine learning, which is a form of AI. He really he's focused on those outcomes and driving good results, and you can't hide from results when you're doing performance marketing. So one of the things that I thought it was particularly interesting was that Moloco still uses machine learning in most of their messaging, where if you really wanted to like tap into the hype cycle, you'd probably update everything to say, we're an AI driven platform that's going to help you drive those results. But I think they're just so much more focused on driving the results, and it really seems to be serving them well in building a successful company.
Yeah, for sure. I had to talk you down from the calling growth hacking AI-driven growth hacking. No, I'm just kidding. But I think, ultimately, performance marketing is about optimizing every element of reaching people at the right place, at the right time, with the right message. And machine learning augments that, augments what smart human beings can do to actually achieve that. Moloco's model, I think it makes 8 million predictions per second to get it right.
That blew my mind.
I know. And when they do that, when they get it right, they are creating real value for advertisers and consumers.
Exactly. So I think the relevance to the larger AI discussion in the world is going to be super interesting for our listeners. But that was really only one of the things that you and I took from the conversation that we got excited about. I think we both honed in on the fact that he is the VP of EMEA. So for anyone who isn't familiar with that acronym, that means Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and focusing on pushing a solution out in very different regions. Even the countries within Europe tend to be pretty different, but across those regions, I think there was a lot of interesting learning there as well. And they've had, it really helped advertisers in each of those markets reach customers through mobile apps and gaming in particular. Yeah. But not only is he expanding regionally, he's also working to expand into other markets like retail, food delivery, e-commerce, and pretty much anything you can think of to bring that same performance marketing that we've come to love from the big platforms to the broader web.
Yeah, I mean, the expansion story here is definitely it's definitely interesting, and I think both of us left. You and I can always judge how how good these podcast episodes are going to be by our enthusiasm in our post debrief, and we were pretty excited about this one. So, I mean, Moloco's on tear. They have a valuation north of $2 billion now. Their founding team sounds pretty brilliant with experience from YouTube, Google, and Oracle. And they're really extending opportunities for performance marketers all over the world. So I think there's a lot to learn in this one. So what do you think, Sean? Should we jump in?
Yeah, I just, you talk about that valuation, but I think it's also the growth rate. What you had mentioned a stat to me of they were one of the, was it top 10 fastest growing companies in Silicon Valley based on, I think, the Inc. 5000
Yeah.
latest report.
Yeah, it was something like that. I mean, it was a pretty staggering, to stand out the way they did. I don't remember the exact statistic, but to stand out the way they did was pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think in particular with having AI as part of their solution that they're offering in a business to business context to be able to drive that growth rate and those valuations, the sky's the limit on this business and many that are tapping into these technologies. So I think everyone's going to really enjoy this episode. I want to just acknowledge that it's been a while since we put an episode out. Ethan and I have both been, we've both been heads down working in very fast growing companies. And I think that's one of the things that helps us add value to these conversations is that we don't just talk about growth, that we actually spend a lot of time rolling up our sleeves, executing growth and moving beyond the theory to what practically matters and works. So hopefully you'll pick that up as we have this conversation, but let's dive into it.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, Ben, welcome to the Breakout Growth Podcast.
Good to be here. Thank you, Sean and Ethan.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Ethan is here as well. So I'm joined by my co-host, Ethan Gar. Good to see you, Ethan.
Yeah, good to see you too. Nice to meet you, Ben, in person. Unfortunately, I only have part of me, as you can hear. I have a little laryngitis this week, but I'll do my best to power through.
Some might say that's a good thing. Ethan will talk a little less and listen a little more. So
I think our audience saw that one coming from a mile away.
I may have slipped Ethan something to give him some laryngitis, slow him down a bit. Cool. Well, let's jump right into it. So Ben, you are the vice president of EMEA at Moloco. Did I pronounce it correctly? How do you guys pronounce the company name?
I guess Moloco, Moloco.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions that I want to ask about. I know that kind of the hot topics these days are AI and machine learning. And I just got back from a speaking tour in Brazil. And whenever I'm doing a podcast interview, one of the first questions people ask is just how is AI in particular, but machine learning as well, impacting growth and how we're going to approach our jobs in the future. And the truth is, I really don't know too much. You're more likely to be an expert in those areas than me. So I'm excited to dig into that with you. But I think it's important for our audience to do a little bit of background first, and you can talk a bit about what the company does and what kind of customers you serve and maybe the outcomes that you help to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. So Moloco is a machine learning company. Initially, the founders had MLC, machine learning company, as the name, and then added the O's to make it more pronounceable. And what it is that we do is in performance advertising, make sure that we are driving return on ad spend for advertisers. And we are specialized with our biggest and first business line is the DSP, a demand side platform, where we help app businesses acquire new users. And the company has been around is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. So it's a bit of a overnight success that took 10 years. Our founder, we have founders from ex Google and Oracle, and Ikchin, our CEO, he was one of the first machine learning engineers at YouTube. He developed the monetization algorithm for YouTube as a machine learning engineer. and then thought, okay, I can take this and democratize this technology and help other businesses grow. So this is what we do. And we've been doing it quite successfully in the last 2 years, growing more than 5x, which is extremely impressive.
Yeah, and how big is the overall team?
We're more than 500 people now.
Okay, sorry if you said that. Suddenly my pen stopped working, so I was like randomly searching for another pen, but now I got it working again. So over 500 people. Okay.
No. Yeah, over 500 people. Half of them are actually machine learning engineers, data scientists, and the rest are the people like me who are trying to make something out of
helping
that.
to let people take advantage of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, the growth has been incredible. I saw you guys have a valuation north of $2 billion now. And as Sean was saying, like all the rage everywhere we go these days, everything's about AI. I've been working with a team doing generative AI in the DevOps space. I mean, it's permeating everywhere. And obviously machine learning and AI are closely related. Do you guys consider yourselves an AI company, or like, is it really machine learning? And maybe like, what do you see as the difference or relationship between those two?
Yeah, it's a good question. So AI is the umbrella term, and machine learning is part of AI. AI is anything that tries to emulate human intelligence and teaching computers to behave like humans and act and achieve outcomes like humans. And ML more specifically is the field of using algorithms and data to teach a system to self-learn and produce outcomes that otherwise couldn't have been designed if the person that is writing the code couldn't actually achieve these type of results themselves. The system is improving and getting better than the human that is designing the system. So if you think about it in playing chess, so there's a level where you can to which you can play chess. But if you are a very strong machine learning engineer, you can teach the system to teach itself and eventually become better than you. And you obviously couldn't descriptively explain the machine how to beat yourself, but you can teach it to teach itself and then beat you. And that's kind of how machine learning works.
Gotcha. And I guess in the world of performance marketing, where you just have huge data sets to work with, I guess that's really where that leverage really comes into play, right? Like nobody could take all that data and manually come up with the best outcomes for advertisers on their own, but teaching the system to learn can then essentially augment the knowledge that the programmers have themselves, right?
Absolutely. And we're talking about huge amount of data. So when the scale that we are at, our DSP is plugged into 35 different exchanges, and we're receiving about 6 billion bid requests per second, and the machine needs to make decisions in less. So it's a real-time bidding auction, and the machine needs to respond in less than 100 milliseconds. We take about 50 to 80 milliseconds to answer, and we need to make a decision on what ad creative should we show, what ad format is most suitable, and then what is the appropriate bid price for this specific impression. And it's unimaginable, right? The scale and the speed at which these systems operate.
So I just want to ask one more related question to that, because I was reading an article just coming into this conversation about Moloco and trying to better understand what you do. And one of the things that struck me is that it seems like an area where you are really trying to differentiate yourself is in terms of ad relevance. I mean, ads are, let's say it's on, they're sold on a CPM basis. There's this idea, simply, trying to optimize for the immediate value of, who gets who's bidding the most is one thing, but ultimately the long-term success is going to be on the relevance of that ad. Is that really a big part of what you're trying to train your machine learning algorithm to do, is to not just look at one parameter, the dollars and cents, but look at the long-term value to the end user so that you make long-term a lot more value for the advertiser?
Absolutely. Everything that Moloco does is about value creation. And that's the beauty of performance marketing, where the incentives are aligned. If we do not deliver performance, and performance in this instance means return on ad spend. So if we don't return ad dollars back to the advertisers, then ad budgets shift to other players. And so the only way we can sustain and grow is by actually delivering value, which means long-term outcome. Like buying ads from Moloco is like an investment. You pay X and you expect to get X plus back out of it. And if we can't deliver that, then people won't continue to buy from us. So yes, we're very much focused about on going beyond just showing the highest paying ads to the person. It needs to be we need to show the ad to the person that we believe is the most relevant and has the highest user value for this specific advertiser.
And do you feel like that just like on the AI kind of side, that it's just in such like a hype cycle right now that people are focused on that just because everyone else is talking about it, and there's like, how's this going to help my job? Is this going to take my job away? And they should really be talking about machine learning, or should it really just be outcome focused? What are the outcomes we're trying to accomplish? What are the tools to accomplish those outcomes? And kind of the technology that drives those outcomes is the name of that technology doesn't really matter that much. How would you kind of differentiate between those things?
It's a good question. It's a good question. One is like marketing the company or the business, and you rightly pointed out before we went online that we don't mention AI too much on our website. And I'm torn because I don't know. I think potentially there's value in saying, and we wouldn't lie if we say that we are an AI company, because as I said, AI is the umbrella term, and machine learning is a category of AI. But I think the vast majority of people do think about it like you just described. There's an engine that gets me from A to B, and I don't necessarily. There's some people that really care and look under the hood and want to understand exactly the mechanics of the engine. But most people want to get from A to B in a comfortable way, in a reliable way. And what exactly the technology is that drives it is less relevant. And I think it's the same is true for us. If we throw around fancy words but don't deliver value,
right,
it doesn't really matter at all. And we couldn't achieve continuous growth. So really focusing on getting the outcomes that advertisers need is all that matters. If you're playing the long game. If you want to like jump on the hype, but as I said, we're 10 years in the making, so we're about to celebrate our 10-year anniversary at Moloco, So it takes a long time to do this well and do it right. For the first 5 years, I don't think Moloco made a cent, and only 5 years in, we started to actually make revenue and then grow, because
Right.
it's complex. It's really, really difficult
Yeah.
to do.
Some might say
Um,
that you hit product market fit at that point, I'm assuming.
yes,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
so
Um,
I think this question of or this outcome focus that you have, where really what you're doing is you're leveraging machine learning to drive better return on ad spend. And in the world of competitive bidding, which everything's turning into, even if you buy CPM, it's, it really all comes down to, if you don't get that return on investment, you can't sustainably invest money there. And so um, if we kind of play that out for a while, and we start to say, all right, if a tool like Moloco is able to drive better return on ad spend, make you more competitive, then the ones that are really going to be competing for all the top spots are going to be leveraging something like your tool set. Um, how does that start to kind of play out long term? I've seen companies kind of all over the board in terms of leveraging technology, including companies that are 6 and 7 figure a month spending on ads with no even tracking of return on ad spend, let alone having the tools to optimize that return on ad spend. But clearly, that again, the more you can have a positive return on investment and then really scale that spend, that's how you buy market share and you own a market. So, do you have thoughts in kind of how this starts to play out in the next few years as more and more companies leverage machine learning in their approach to performance marketing?
yeah, I think what happens is that it it gives the opportunity for the best products to rise to the top, because underlying is and in our case, we're advertising certain apps. So if the
Mm-hmm.
app itself is not attractive to users, isn't
Sure.
um, and so isn't delivering the utility or entertainment or whatever it's trying to drive, then you can have the best machine learning to actually try and to get users in the door. But if you
Yeah.
can't keep them and maintain them, then that's nothing can help you. So
Right.
um, I think the answer is a long-winded answer is, I think machine learning has the potential to level the playing field and allow the best products to rise to the top. That's
Mm-hmm.
maybe an idealistic view of a potential future, but I
Right.
think there's something there.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm really glad you touched on kind of the quality of the product experience as being a major factor. If you're just really efficient at reaching customers and driving that return on investment, but your ability to convert those customers to a great experience in a product that delivers on their need is limited, you in the long run, you're not going to be able to build an effective business. And so, in my experience, I started in the performance marketing side of things, but I quickly found that a lot of investment in activation. So how do you get a new customer or a new prospect to the right experience in the product was really where I had a lot of leverage to become a lot more competitive in those channels. So is that an area that you guys also work in, or do you have like other tools that you integrate with that are effective there, or how do you kind of work in the stack that helps someone be ultimately really competitive in reaching the right prospects and converting them and building market share?
Yeah, so for the DSP business specifically, we're very much focused on um, the user acquisition aspect. So finding the right
Mm-hmm.
user for your product, um,
Mm-hmm.
finding people that look alike, the people that are doing well within products, and we're using your first-party data to train our models and find you more of what you already have. That's the main advantage. There's a second and third business line that we have. So we have our retail media platform business, which is the flip side. It's allowing retail marketplaces of all shapes and sizes to monetize their users. So create an ads business and having merchants advertise and then create return on ad spend for your merchants on the platform. So it's using the same performance marketing mindset and technology. But here we're actually, to some extent, further down the funnel in the stack, helping you generate a more profitable business. Rather than on the DSP side, we're helping you acquire users. On the RMP side, we're actually making your product more profitable. And
got it.
High margin ads business, creating a high margin.
Yeah, so it sounds. I know. I just so Ethan and I kind of communicate offline a little bit, and I'm like, "You're up," and so I'm gonna take that back. So it sounds like that part that I talked about in terms of activation, companies still need to do that well, and it doesn't mean like one tool doesn't necessarily serve all the needs of a company. So just for our listeners out there, as you kind of think about how these pieces fit together, really efficient and well managed customer acquisition is really important. It sounds like that's where you guys play a really big role. Very good revenue optimization is also really important, and it sounds like you can play a role for particular, maybe not SaaS, but for a ad supported company there. And then, but just don't forget about that layer of that often sits in between marketing and product. That how do you onboard that new customer to the right experience in your product so that ultimately they get to that aha moment and want to come back more and more. And that's often more process driven in my experience than it is necessarily tool driven. Yeah, there might be a lot of A/B testing, which would require the tools, but just to kind of draw the full picture of where do you really drive success in performance marketing. I think what you're doing is an incredibly important part of that stack, but it's important to look at that big picture as well.
Yeah,
sure.
I just, I think that's a great way to tie that together, Sean. But also, I wanted to go back to one thing you said earlier, Ben. You mentioned that Moloco is really able to use ML to sort of level the playing field. And I think if you think about this industry, I mean, it's been dominated by Google and Meta, right, for a long time. Do you see what you're doing as fitting in more of a niche, or is it disrupt? Is it ultimately the goal is to disrupt that part of the that part of performance marketing that they've dominated so well?
Yeah, so I think what sets Google and Meta apart from all the others is that they actually excel at driving advertiser the results that they're looking for. So return on ad spend and driving real performance is what made them grow to the behemoths that they are today. And I think outside of Meta, Google, and Amazon, by the way, who also have a performance ads business like it's similar to our retail media platform business, to be honest. But outside of those three companies, then there's no one that has the level of sophistication when it comes to machine learning in the performance marketing space. So we see ourselves as outside of these walled gardens. If you want to grow, and there's audiences that are spending a lot of their time, a lot of eyeballs are going outside of Meta and Google. People are spending time in apps and on websites and so on. And if you are outside of these walled gardens, this is where we see ourselves as the real alternative to drive performance and give you the same results that you're used to from these type of companies in the open internet, so to speak.
So
Gotcha.
are you not like how much of the business, I mean, not with like specific numbers, but how much of the ad spend that goes through you guys goes to these big platforms versus some of the rest of the internet? Is I'm assuming that you also integrate with AdWords and Facebook.
No, so we do not.
You do not. Okay, interesting.
We don't
Sorry.
see no. So no worries. I think it's good. It's a good point you raised because I think it's important to clarify. We think that they really know what they're doing, right?
Okay.
So I think
gotcha.
it doesn't make sense for us to compete on their traffic.
Mhm.
And so besides the fact that they don't allow us to, if they
Right,
would
gotcha.
allow us to, I think we would give it a shot. But I think as it stands now, that's why we call them walled gardens, because there's
Got
only
it.
one.
Yeah.
You go in, but you can't. They don't really let external parties buy or get access to the data and so on. So everything outside of those walled gardens is where we are acquiring users, and we are driving similar, if not better, results for our advertisers than they can get with Meta and Google.
That's fantastic, because I know personally when I'm working with a company, I tend to, I tend to focus kind of the post-click experience, and then either through external agencies or just internal experts within the business, they're doing a lot of the advertising management side of things. But it seems that Google and Facebook really have dominated the ad spend of the companies that I've worked with, and I think it's because they provide all of that data, and obviously they have the reach. You have all of the intent that sits inside Google, and then a lot of targeting data that sits inside Facebook. But to be able to leverage other traffic sources that combined are probably bigger than Google and Facebook is really exciting as a way to expand additional high return on investment opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
do you see customers coming to you? Should customers potentially come to you first, or because you see more opportunity outside of those walled gardens for them to really find high performing channels? Or is it usually they should probably sort of test the waters elsewhere, get a sense of what they can do within Google, Meta, et cetera, and then, or is it just a combination of both?
I think the beauty is that it's not mutually exclusive, unless, I mean, if you have a limited budget, then yes, you need to. But assuming that you have sufficient budget, and given that the idea is it's an investment that pays back, and you can measure the return on ad spend. Budgets should be unlimited, right? Like it's just you're spending money and you're getting more back. So it's it might be a cash flow question at some point, but theoretically, if performance is strong, budgets and you can scale infinitely, budgets should be infinite as well.
And there's enough savvy investors out there.
And to your question, should they come to us first versus?
Go for it. Sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Yes.
You go ahead. Yeah.
No worries. So I was saying I think Meta and Google make it extremely easy for you to get going and started, and we're trying to do exactly the same. there's no reason why you shouldn't start with us.
Gotcha.
Is kind of what I'm saying, but I don't think it's mutually exclusive. You don't have to
Right.
make the tough decision. Is really where I'm going.
Yeah, in my experience, as you said, the goal is as many positive return on investment opportunities as possible, with an acceptable payback window. So if your positive return on investment takes you
Yes.
4 years, then maybe you're not going to have the balance sheet and cash flow
Yes.
to support that. But assuming you have a relatively
Yes.
fast return on investment, you want as many of those as possible. And then what I was going to quickly just chime in that there's enough savvy investors out there that if you have a lot of fast return on investment opportunities that are untapped in a business, that's usually the most attractive investment for even debt investors. So you could do equity investment or debt investment, and so yeah, that in my experience with any company I've ever worked with is always the biggest challenge: is how do you find additional positive return on investment ways to drive growth in the business beyond what you've already identified, and as long as it's an acceptable payback window, you should be doing it.
So Ben, I know in your role, you're tapped with driving growth in Europe, Mideast, Africa. Mike, I'm curious, what do you see as the big opportunities in those regions, and what's exciting about it for you, and where do you see the business going in those markets?
So I was just this is the home office moment where I just got interrupted by my kid. We've all been there.
No worries.
So you asked about EMEA and untapped markets. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was just curious what you see as the opportunities there.
Yes. So I think big opportunity for us is growing outside of gaming apps. So we have we're strong with we have some really nice clients on the travel, transportation, fintech, e-com, food delivery, but really where we are particularly strong in EMEA is on the gaming side. So gaming app developers with in-app purchase events work extremely well, and we've scaled those businesses dramatically. And I think the opportunity is for us in EMEA particularly is replicating what we've seen my US counterparts and our US teams doing, as well as our Apex team, is capturing much more of market share outside of the gaming space.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and can I just slip one in there? Just I think it's I think the value proposition that you've laid out for us is really strong in what you're doing for companies. But even beyond the expansion, as Ethan was just asking about, I think it'd be probably pretty helpful to just understand kind of what the go-to-market mechanism is for your business. How do you guys acquire your customers? Is it largely a touch sale? Is it a highly consultative sale? Is it more self-service? And just you touched on the growth. I think you said what did you say? 5x growth in the last couple of years. I mean, so incredible growth rates. I think I had read that you're the 5th fastest growing company in Silicon Valley based on the Inc. 5000. So clearly you have a solution that's resonating with the market, and you figured out a really good way to get that solution to market. So yeah, more insights in how you're doing that would be really helpful as well.
Yeah. So what we have sales reps that reach out to prospects via LinkedIn and attend a lot of the industry events where marketeers are, and we I don't know how many events I would love to have this number off the top of my head, but I think it's north of 50 events that we've attended in this year in EMEA alone. And then we also have partner channels where we collaborate with the various mobile measurement partners and other tech partners to bring clients in and make them aware of us. So we feature in several of the rankings of best media sources and so on. So yeah, this is kind of how we go to market.
Yeah, and then from a value proposition perspective on the outreach, like to me, I think from what you've talked about, one of the things that's most appealing is this idea that are you completely reliant on Google and Facebook for your ad spend? Would you like to tap into all of the alternative sources out there with similar targeting and optimization opportunities? Is that kind of what the value proposition is when you're reaching out to people, and if so, what are the types, the kind of more company stage? Like, do they tend to be pretty early stage? Are they big companies, or everything across the board?
That was pretty good, Sean. Do you want to join us?
Sure. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, you made it sound so easy. But yes, that's basically the value proposition. And in terms of company size, it really the only prerequisite is that your app generates enough events, so is big enough to generate enough events to for our ML to have data in order to optimize against. If you want to run a basic, just an install campaign, then you need X amount of installs per day. But those are not really that's not the holy grail of what we do. What you really want us to run is return on ad spend campaigns. And for that, we need payment events, and we need X amount of payment events to train the machine and then find users that can do that. So size does matter to some extent, or the amount of data that your app business currently is producing matters. But other than that, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're an enterprise with an e-com app, or you are a 2-person gaming studio. We are open to all.
And I assume it's mostly consumer businesses then that they're going to have that data volume versus say B2B applications.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So is it safe to say, though, that as long as you have a reasonable amount of events happening, as you're saying, that the budget you would need to test the value of Moloco is probably fairly low? Because I assume it doesn't take that long for the ML algorithm to figure out and start optimizing, right?
Yes. And what we do is one ingenious move by our ML engineers is that we actually are able to train our models before you start spending, by enabling ingesting data into our systems in advance. So we can start 2 weeks prior to launching. We can start ingesting your event data into our system. We can train the models, and then we can go, and we already have a head start. And then depending on the amount of data that we get, it will take another 2, 3, 4 weeks to ramp up and reach your campaign goals.
So do they need to make a kind of a budget commitment to you to do that work, or are you able to kind of offer that as a a kind of pre-sale value add to say, this is what we think we can deliver to you, or is it kind of too expensive to offer that without some kind of commitment and spend for you guys?
No, so as we mentioned earlier, we can deliver people to your app, but then depending how strong your product is, the results will largely depend on the app as well, right? So for us to take the risk with any business to say, okay, we're gonna we know exactly how your app works, how it monetizes is difficult. Therefore, we basically say, okay, you know your product. What we can do is deliver you the users, and then you need to do the rest. You need to retain them and monetize them, and so on.
So I guess building on that question, how do you actually charge for your product? Do you charge as a percentage of ad spend that goes through it, or is it a kind of a flat SaaS fee?
It's on an OCPM basis, so it's optimized cost per mil, and that's that's how we charge.
Okay, so it's based on the volume that's basically going through it.
It's exactly. So it's essentially like a media cost. It's a cost plus. So whatever we are, because we are also buying the media on your behalf, and we're charging, we're taking a markup.
But it does seem like, I'm just, again, maybe overthinking your go-to-market, and maybe you do something like this, and maybe it's some new ideas for you. But like, even though you can't guarantee that we think we could get you this much, I think if you still said, if, based on a model of conversion rates of this, monetization of this, repeat purchase, whatever, if you can deliver on those pieces, we think we can give you this much incremental growth. And if your sales team could essentially offer that assessment for free as a kind of proof of concept, it feels like you get a lot of people saying, holy crap, let's test this. This seems fairly low risk to test. Have you tried anything like that?
We haven't. So the whole like value engineering concept is I think I don't want to simplify it too much, because I think we have brilliant sales reps, but pretty much the pitch that you gave earlier is close to how a conversation goes in reality. Do you like the results you're getting from Meta and from Google? Would you like to expand on that opportunity on the vast majority of the open internet that is currently untapped? Yes. Okay, let's go.
And it's already, I guess,
simplified dramatically.
And
I guess it's already low risk enough that they could basically try it and turn it off if it's not delivering.
Absolutely.
I think no, I was going to say this, basically the same thing. I think what you're hearing is Sean and I always get excited when we hear about, businesses that sort of have really connected value for their end users. And what this really talks about is like, hey, this is sort of, if you're getting value here, it's kind of a no-brainer to try it here, because it's only going to be to your benefit. It's only expansive to that. And the risk is low, and the time to learn is quick, right? I think that's, if you can get an answer in a few weeks as to whether this is going to be an effective channel. I mean, how many, you talked about like going to 50 events this year. The problem with events, right, is it can take a while to figure out really how effective they are going to be for you, right? And whereas this is instant gratification. So I know we're starting to run short on time. We didn't dig too much into your specific role. I know
I have one question on his specific role. If you,
go ahead.
Maybe you were going to hit the same one, but I'm just really curious. I think that it feels like it's such a pure value proposition, such a clean one. Is there Is there any kind of tweaking to that value proposition, as with your focus on EMEA? Is there any kind of tweaking to that value proposition in different markets, or does pretty much the same pitch work in each market?
No, I think there are local nuances for sure. So I think one challenge we have in EMEA is when you think about e-com, EMEA is an extremely fragmented market. You don't have, like in the US, one massive market with one language, with one store to go after. In EMEA, you have hundreds of different markets with languages and so on. And
even just within Europe, you're going to have different, huge differences. And then you compare European countries to African countries or Middle Eastern countries. It's
absolutely. And so that is one big challenge. The challenge is twofold. One, in how do you structure the team to go after these opportunities, right? Because as you know, people tend to buy from people very much like to speak their own languages. So this is a talent question and challenge. And then it's on the product side. We scale really well for businesses, but if you are only present in one language in one market, the value that we can deliver is limited by your market, right? So I think that is that's part of the challenge, and that's why in EMEA gaming has worked so well, because gaming is global. Gaming tends to be gaming apps tends to be available all over, and there's amazing talent game developers in EMEA, and so that's one of the advantages, and that's why we went after gaming companies in EMEA specifically first. Whereas in the US, we see food delivery and e-com and all those apps do extremely well because it's they don't have the same constraints. I hope that answers.
No, it does. It does.
Question.
Thanks.
So I just have one last question, and then Sean will ask our famous wrap-up question. But if you look back, Ben, in let's say, I don't know, you tell me, 2 years or so at your efforts here at Moloco, what will success look like for you? What, like, if you can say, man, I hit it out of the park, what's happened in that time period?
I think we would have established it. We would have come onto this podcast and you would have known exactly who Moloco is. I think becoming a household name is, as one of the leading software companies in the world, is something that we have the ambition to achieve, and we have all the ingredients to actually achieve. You mentioned with the 5th fastest growing company in Silicon Valley, and so if we continue on this trajectory, I think we can get there.
Gotcha. So I guess that informs sort of what I've read about you guys, and also a little bit about why the push into beyond just gaming, right? It's product diversification for you guys is really about showcasing who you are beyond just that one niche, right? That it's a big niche, gaming, but that's the importance of being present in e-commerce and retail and other places as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we have other businesses that we're launching, and where the retail media platform business has hit product market fit, and now it's about scaling that to the same extent that we have scaled the DSP, and so creating further S curves and extending the S curves is what we're about, and we're tapping into really, really big markets that are ready and ripe to actually benefit from machine learning at this level.
So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to add one more question before my last question. it just struck me that like I feel like in the past, when I mentioned I originally started in a performance marketing role, and it was a very manual process to, like, we would run a macro in an Excel sheet that would give us kind of the bid adjustments, and it was a very kind of hands-on process. More and more you get, you put your target cost per acquisition or even your return on investment, and you're getting directly in systems like yours or in Facebook or in AdWords, your ability to make those adjustments. Agencies have kind of come in and out of playing a role for me over the years with that. But as you can start to do buying across a lot of different media and through a platform that tests and optimizes that media, are you finding that a lot of your business is through agencies, or is most of it direct to the clients? And do you see that changing over time?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It is becoming increasingly easy to buy from platforms because machines are taking over a lot of the heavy lifting, which means that a lot of our clients feel comfortable with buying direct from us. And I think agencies still play a role, and I don't think they're going anywhere. I think very often we have the case where there's teams that are scaling and they don't have the capacity, and then they bring in an agency to fill in the expertise gap and just actually the manpower and woman power. And then eventually in-house a lot of these activities because it's fairly easy to run on these platforms, including ours.
And I've even seen agencies like rolling up landing pages now and kind of trying to do the value add on the conversion side, knowing that if they just focus on the customer acquisition side, that they're likely to be disintermediated by technologies.
Yeah, I think, by the way, there's also value add in the creative production. So there's agencies that are adding creative production and media buying as services, and given that creative is one of the few levers that one has in this new world, it's becoming increasingly important to get that right, and having someone with a lot of expertise, like an agency, to help you is very useful and powerful.
And that'll be an interesting question to kind of come back to our original, and it's a question without an answer right now. But the what role does AI play in that media creation itself, in the advertising creation and landing page creation? Because I know there's a lot of tools out there that are quickly creating different types of advertisements and even full websites at this point. So it's all of this is evolving really quickly, and it's an exciting area to watch. And I think you guys play a really critical role. So we have one final question that we like to end every one of these conversations with, and it's what do you feel like you understand about growth today that you may not have understood a couple of years ago, at least not as well?
I love that question. To me, it's the impact individuals have on growth. So you can have outsized impact by extremely high talented individuals that basically can set your company on a completely different growth trajectory. And I think that is something that I wasn't as aware of, and I've learned that over the last couple of years, I would say, or more. But it
Awesome.
became I became increasingly aware how important it is to have these superstars within your team.
I love that, because I don't think it minimizes everybody's impact on growth, but it says that, like, I think as an individual, if someone's listening to this, it says to you, don't worry, don't be afraid to be the change maker, to throw out the big ideas, even if they sound crazy.
Yes. And put in the work, because I think that can really set people apart. Like, there's a lot of people like us who like to talk, but actually the people who get stuck in and do the work and are creative and find a way to get things done and see the world slightly differently and have some that really makes the difference. That makes the whole thing fun. And I think you also need to pick an environment where this is celebrated and where people are open to hearing good ideas and allow them to come from anywhere, right? So then you
absolutely.
can rise to the top.
Absolutely. And, just one, before we kind of lean too far into the positioning of talkers and not doers, I just finished up a role with Bounce. I think it's one of the fastest growing companies in the world. And I love rolling up my sleeves and doing, because it is really easy to get theoretical about these things and become academic about them. And I know Ethan has been hands-on with the company as well. And that's where kind of this stuff is reality. And kind of the hype cycle, as we kind of talked about with AI and some of these other pieces. Outcomes matter. Outcomes are what help you drive impact in a business, whether it's games and the impact is just entertainment and fun, or you're solving a hard problem that people have. If you don't have the right tools to reach those customers and cost effectively acquire and serve those customers, you're not going to provide very much impact, and you're not going to build a valuable business. And so I'm really excited by this conversation. My big takeaway, again, comes back to just like there's so much hype around AI right now, and that machine learning is a piece of AI, and that you guys are applying it in a way that really helps companies drive a lot more impact on their customers by being able to expand the strong return on investment opportunities to strong return on ad spend opportunities to acquire lots of customers. And so, it's a super cool conversation, a fun conversation. Ethan, do you have any other big takeaways from this conversation?
No, you really stole mine again, Sean. But I 100% agree. I think it comes down to, get stuff done. You want to talk about AI, great. But if you turn that into action, figure out how AI is going to change your future, whatever it is, it's like you said, it's the language becomes less important than the effort to make those things come to life. So, Ben, I equally enjoyed this conversation. I probably will not be able to speak for another week, but it's been.
Thank you.
Again,
Ben, any last words that you want to put before we wrap things up?
I want to thank you both for having me. I enjoyed the conversation very much, and as I told you, it went on longer than we all expected, but I really enjoyed myself a lot. So thanks for the questions and the prep.
Absolutely. And when it goes on longer, that means that Ethan and I are really excited about the topic and the guest and the company. So thanks for bringing an interesting conversation. And for Ethan and I, it's the first podcast interview we've done for a while, because we have both been so busy executing. Yeah. So it's great to be back in and have you back on as one of our first guests after an extended break, but we've got a lot more planned. And so for those who have tuned in, thank you for listening, and we'll bring you another episode soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Breakout Growth Podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're at it, subscribe so you never miss a show. Until next week.